You're listening to a podcast from the BBC World Service. This is Hardtalk with me, Stephen Sacker. Thanks for downloading this edition of the programme. I do hope you enjoy it. Welcome to Hardtalk on the BBC World Service with me, Stephen Sacker. My guest today recently embarked on one of the most hazardous journeys imaginable for a Western writer and journalist. Last December, 74-year-old JrgenTodenhfer left his comfortable home in Germany to spend 10 days inside the territory controlled by the so-called Islamic State group. He was taken to their base in Raqqa, Syria, and then to their most highly prized asset in Iraq, the northern city of Mosul. Remarkably, he undertook this journey with his son, Frederick, by his side. JrgenTodenhfer is no stranger to the risks that come with bearing witness to conflict. From Afghanistan to Iraq and Syria, he has consistently visited and written about conflicts which have drawn in the US and its allies. He's become a vocal critic of American foreign policy and military interventions. His own experience has included years in the legal profession and as a centre-right member of the German Parliament. But now he's best known as a peace advocate prepared to talk to anyone with a stake in contemporary conflicts. Which brings me back to his unique access to the extremists inside IS. What did he learn about them from his close encounter? And what conclusions might we draw about his own motivations? Well, JrgenTodenhfer joins me now. Welcome to Hardtalk.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with the beginnings of your contact with the Islamic State group. It clearly didn't happen overnight. You spent months cultivating them. But what made you believe that you could reach out to a group who are at war with the non-Muslim world?
I had met many terrorists. I've met Al-Qaeda. I've met leaders of the Taliban. I've been in the Algerian war, and I was quite sure that there was a chance, but I had to find out where was the chance. So I asked a guarantee from the Caliph itself, and I asked to make this guarantee public. So I wanted to create a situation where if they would have killed me, it would have been a damage for themselves.
You say you asked for a guarantee from the Caliph himself. Do you mean Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi?
Yeah.
So you had direct contact with him?
No, but I had contact with the media department, and I wanted to come. They didn't invite me. I said I wanted to go there. And I said, I will only come if I get a guarantee from the Caliph. So at the end...
If I know, you make it sound so easy, as though you sort of pick up the phone and have a chat with them. I mean, this is
No.
This is a group committed to brutal jihad. So I'm just wondering how you found it so possible to have this communication with them.
It was very difficult. I started in January, so almost a year before. We made phone calls and Skype interviews with German jihadists. They are on the internet, and we wrote to more than 80 German jihadists. At the end, 15 talked to us, answered. At the end, we were in contact with 2, and one of them was somebody who was officially allowed to talk with me, to speak with me, a member of the media department of IS, a German jihadist.
Who was in Germany, or who was actually in IS territory?
In Raqqa, at this time, the capital of the Islamic State in Syria.
Base in Syria.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. During this time of communication, which proceeded through the course of 2014, we saw the most terrible things. We saw the videos released of the beheadings of Westerners, including journalists and aid workers. Did that change your mindset? At any point, did you think, this mission of mine to go and see for myself what is happening is a fool's errand?
No. I saw that this was dangerous. My son said, you will never come back. So the few people who knew that I wanted to go there said, you have no chance. I knew one of the journalists, he was with me in Benghazi, who was beheaded. And for me it was horrible to see these killings, these beheadings, this brutality. And this was just the reason why I wanted to find out how people who had a normal life in Germany before, how could they become so brutal killers? How was it possible? How was it possible to brainwash young guys from your country, from all the countries all over the world, to become killers, brutal killers.
So your philosophy is that there is no one you cannot imagine having a dialogue with? I mean, am I characterizing it in the right way?
It's not a dialogue. If you want to, they are our enemies. They said that we are the enemies and they are the enemies. And if you want to defeat your enemy, you have to know your enemy. Kirchner has once said he didn't want to talk to the Viet Cong and the Vietnamese. He said, that's a third-class communist agricultural country. I will not talk to them. And at the end, they had to leave because they didn't know the Viet Cong, they didn't know the Vietnamese. And I think we have to know IS to defeat them. We have to know them well.
Yeah, and before we get to what you learned and the insights you've gained from your access to them, I just want to ask you about one other extraordinary element of your mission, and that was your decision, and I still find this very hard to believe, to take your own son on the mission too.
I did not decide that. My son decided it. He is 31. At this age, I was already a member of the German Parliament. So he had helped me to have this internet contact. And he said, you cannot leave me back. And if they kill you, I have to live a whole life with a feeling that I'm responsible. I have helped you to be killed. You cannot do that. And as he realized that I wanted just to go without him, he said, I will destroy all the internet contacts you have. You won't find anything anymore. And you can be sure, you even don't know what is the phone number or the Skype number. I will destroy everything. You have to take me.
They are a group who have engaged in a form of violence and an ideology of all-out warfare.
Correct.
Which is different. And that's why I wonder how you could be...
They celebrate their brutality.
They do. So when you walk across the final line and enter IS territory with your son, what are you feeling?
You don't have time to have feelings if you cross the border to enter such a country. So you have to have all these feelings before. I was thinking every day, and when I went to bed at night, I had the feeling very often that somebody was cutting my head. And then I went outside in a little garden and I was thinking if it was the right decision. So I was discussing this problem, and I was thinking and I was listening inside. Is it good to go there? Is it possible? And at the end, I was sure that I would come back. And I only can repeat, if you make such a mission, you cannot fear anything anymore when you are inside.
I guess the analogy would be once you've dived into the swimming pool, you just have to swim.
You have to swim. There's no time to have emotions. We had a very difficult situation. They said, after an interview, one fighter told me, it was in Warsaw, when you go back, we will search you in Germany and we will find you. We'll kill you. It was a very strange personal message, but usually you would react. You cannot react emotionally. Yeah. And I made the next interview.
Well, let's then just, as quickly as we can, detail some of the things that you saw and you learned. Let's start with the people who were in control of you, because in essence you've handed over control of your life for your 10 days with IS to them. They tell you where you're going and
no.
They... No?
I said, they wanted to show me Raqqa. I said, I want to see Mosul. They said, they made several plans. They wanted to show me, for example, John Cantley.
Now, John Cantley is the journalist who we have seen in videos.
The British journalist, the hostage, was condemned to death. And I wanted to see him, but they said, you can meet him. We will arrange a meeting. He will give you 2 letters, 1 letter to David Cameron and 1 letter for our family, and we will film it. And I said, of course not. I will not play a role in one of your propaganda films. We will film, or nobody will film. And then at the end, I decided not to meet him because I took the decisions what I wanted to do, not the IS.
Did you have any sense of the command structure? I mean, we believe that the final authority in IS lies with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Did you have any contact at all with him, or how did the command structure work as far as you could see it?
It's pretty decentralized. So I know that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi takes all the decision. He was informed about my visit and he agreed and so on. But if he would be killed tomorrow, nothing would be changed. There are other people. You know, you find another killer, you find another. In this gang, there are other killers.
But they're not just killers, are they? I mean, it seems they are highly organized and have a very clear concept of developing this notion of a caliphate, a transnational entity, state.
A new ideology, completely new ideology, taking Islam as a mask to cover that they want power, they want to dominate the Middle East. Yeah.
Having spent 10 days with them, having traveled from Raqqa in Syria to Mosul in northern Iraq, do you believe that they, in terms of operational abilities, in terms of equipment, in terms of military capability, have the potential to go further, to expand further, to threaten the region, and as some Western politicians like David Cameron say, to pose a fundamental threat to the world?
Fundamental threat to the Middle East, yes. They have a certain chance to control more countries in the Middle East. They are controlling a big part of Libya now, and they have fighters in Gaza, they have fighters in Afghanistan. They are much more dangerous than our politicians imagine, and I think they are establishing themselves now in the region more and more every day. They are now an integrated part of the Middle East. They are everywhere, and they are very dangerous, and they are very clever, and they have an incredible military success.
The thing is, they want people like you to say that.
No.
They want to spread fear. That's the whole point of their videos.
They want to spread
fear. And you,
fear.
in a sense, have become a puppet of theirs by telling me just what a grave threat they pose to the world. I mean, in the end, according to US and British intelligence, there are maybe 30,000 fighters in IS, and you seem to be portraying them as a global existential
Not
threat.
Global. I said a threat in the Middle East, and I say that you have to know your enemies to defeat them, and I say that our politicians don't know them. They say silly things about them. They say, for example, those who come back are a threat for us. This shows that they don't know IS. Those who leave the Islamic States and go back are betrayers. They have to be killed by the IS. The IS is trying to kill them. This shows that we have no idea about them.
Are you sure about that? You're saying that all of this intelligence, which is now resourcing, monitoring of those who have been to Syria and returned, is a waste of time? Because these are rejects, you're saying. These are failed IS cadres, are they?
They didn't succeed to live this life. That's what the IS says. And the IS has killed a lot of them, of those who want to leave. And I'm in contact with parents who try to get out their children. And I'm telling them that they are putting their children in a huge danger, because if the IS finds out that the kids want to leave them, the IS will kill them. So,
well,
you know,
let me stop you there,
you say, no, but excuse me, you say that I show the brutality. They don't need me to show their brutality. I have never shown any brutal scene. They show these brutal scenes.
Well, no, with respect, what I didn't say that you showed the brutality. What I said was that you help them plant fear in the West and the wider world about their capability.
No, they don't need that, because they have, you are right when you say that this is the strategy of them to spread fear. So the enemies are running away. 300 fighters defeat 24,000 troops in Mosul because they fear their IS, but they don't need me for that. I was there to find out who they are. I found out that this strategy, this ideology, has nothing to do with Islam, which is very important for the young people in our countries, that if they go there, they don't do anything good for Islam. They blame Islam. They fight against Islam. This is an anti-Islamic state, not an Islamic state. And I wrote an open letter to al-Baghdadi, which was published by Al Jazeera and many Arab newspapers. And I showed that everything is anti-Islamic. The Quran doesn't oblige anybody to believe. The Quran says there is no compulsion in religion. The Quran doesn't allow to kill innocents. The Quran doesn't allow to make wars of aggression. The Quran doesn't allow to destroy churches, synagogues and mosques and so on.
Did you engage in this sort of theological debate with the fighters you were with?
And with the fighters every day, every morning, on lunchtime, in the evening, every day. And I wrote it.
And what did they say to you, just in brief? What was their response to you saying, guys, you have completely perverted the message of your own holy book?
It made them completely crazy. And at the end, they refused to have breakfast with me. We had very difficult situations. And the atmosphere was frozen at the end because they realized they couldn't persuade me. They realized that I said, the center of your ideology is anti-Islamic. And I wrote that in this open letter, and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi gave an answer to this. The last audio he gave when he said Islam is war was an answer to my open letter where I said Islam is mercy and justice. And he said, people who say that don't know Islam.
I want you to address one specific point which is very germane in the UK and in Germany right now, which is what you make of the motivations of people, including teenagers, boys and girls, including mothers. We've had the case from a northern city in the UK of 3 mothers who took 9 young children into Syria. You must have met some people from abroad who've made this decision. What on earth are they thinking?
Every day I met some people from Europe. I was in a recruitment center near the Turkish border. Every day more than 50 people from Western countries and from the Caucasus arrived there. And I asked them, for example, there was a guy from the Caribbean. Good-looking guy, very well dressed. He seemed to be very intelligent. And I said, he was the last guy we met. When we left, I said, what are you doing here? And he said, I just passed my 2nd law exam. I was admitted to the court. And now I want to serve the Caliph, the Islamic State. And if the Caliph will ask me to fight, I will fight. If he asks me to be in the administration, I will be in the administration. We have to realize that these people are completely brainwashed. They believe that they do something great. They feel discriminated in their country. You want to know the reasons. They feel that our wars in the Middle East have been unjustified and unfair, and they are right, I think. And the third point is they are told that they are waging a historic war between good and evil, which has been predicted 1,400 years ago. And they are told and brainwashed that they are playing a historic role in this war. And for the first time in their life, they have been told that they are important. And that's the brainwashing that happened, which is so dangerous. And this is what we have to do to explain to them that there is no historic war. They are killing Muslims. They are not killing the big enemy, the United States or maybe UK. They are killing their brothers. And that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm doing.
Just briefly, I want to tap into other insights you've got. We don't have much time. What is life like on a daily basis in a city like Raqqa? I mean, there are clearly many Sunni Muslims who live in Raqqa who are not brainwashed, who are not radical activists within the IS movement, but have to live under IS authority. What is life like for ordinary people?
Let me give an answer for Mosul. I've seen Mosul much better. And if you give an answer to that, you have to realize that in Mosul, the Christians have been forced to leave, the Shias have been forced to leave, the Yazidis have been forced to leave, they have been killed, there have been massacres. So I will not forget that. But if I take Mosul as it is now, you get the impression of a kind of totalitarian normality. If somebody is following, respecting the rules of IS, he can live as a member of the population a quiet, normal life. If he doesn't follow the rules, he will be severely punished. And this is a horrible impression to feel this totalitarian normality, the normality of evil.
I want to end by bringing this back to you, to a more personal question. You're well known in Germany as a very vociferous peace activist and author. You've condemned the United States policies and military interventions in the Middle East over many years. You say that the only thing the West should do in the Middle East is withdraw all of its troops and military presence. That you say is the only possible solution to begin to end conflict in the Middle East. Are you beginning to second guess yourself now that you've seen what you've described as the grave threat posed by Islamic State?
I think that the solution concerning IS is that we have to realize that only Sunni Iraqis can defeat the IS. American troops cannot defeat the IS. And you say...
But the Americans can help, can't they? Well, you were in Mosul, you saw US drones leading US bombers into bombing runs against IS. Isn't that something that, for the good of the region, is a positive?
It is horrible. And just to be clear, I'm an honorary colonel of the American Army. And I have many American friends. But I don't like this strategy to think that you just have to bombard a city and then you have found a solution.
I understand, but you say, these are your words, not mine.
Yeah.
IS right now is the greatest threat to world peace since the Cold War.
Yeah.
Something has to be done.
Yeah. And the reason why IS is so strong, IS is tolerated by the Sunni population, the Sunni minority population in Iraq. These are 10 million people. They have been discriminated after the fall of Saddam Hussein. They have lost their jobs, they have been thrown into prison, they have been killed by death squads, and they consider the Shia government as their enemy. And IS is the enemy of their enemy, so they tolerate IS. But if we would reintegrate the Sunnis into the political life of Iraq, then the Sunnis wouldn't consider IS anymore as somebody they have to tolerate. So this is a strategy.
A final quick and simple question. After your time, your extraordinary time with Islamic State, when you returned to Germany, did you feel more or less frightened for the future of the Middle East?
More frightened. I am very pessimistic, and I've been extremely depressed to see how easy it was to brainwash, and it is to brainwash young people. And we have to fight against this gang, which does exist in the Western countries, which is brainwashing young people. And tomorrow, for example, I meet a 15-year-old girl who wants to go to the Islamic State. And I want to explain to her that she will not serve Islam if she goes there. And this is our obligation. And
but isn't the point that she needs to hear that from a Muslim, not from a veteran writer from Germany?
It's not important who tells it to
Surely
this
it is.
girl. I think the Muslims should tell them, but I think I have a certain credibility as far as Islam is concerned, because I'm a Christian. And when I say Islam is mercy and Islam is justice, and Islam is not war, and Islam is not brutality, young Muslims believe me. So I have this credibility. And therefore it was important that I was in the Islamic State.
We have to end there. Fascinating story. JrgenTodenhfer, thank you very much for being on Hardtalk.
Thank you very much.
That was an edition of Hardtalk presented by me, Stephen Sacker. For details of our complete range of podcasts and our terms of use, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.